guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Amina and this is Experiencing Fragrances with Amina. Today we're talking about aldehydes. So a while back, a few months ago, I made a video talking about sheep fragrances and it was so much fun to make. And I like to incorporate something that's a little bit educational. I mean, I'm not in no way a professional or should be one to teach others about perfume, but I kind of want to just share the things that I know. And yeah, I mean, it's fun, isn't it? And at least a few people may learn something from it. So so today we're doing the same thing, but we're talking about aldehydes, okay? I think I shared previously, at least a couple times in the past, that I didn't really care for aldehydes, but my taste has been changing tremendously. And that's going to be another video as well. I'll probably film it today if I have time, but my taste has been changing like crazy. And now I am obsessed with aldehydes. Obsessed. So what I want to do in this video is kind of just talk a little bit, just very briefly, about aldehydes. Again, I am no expert. So if you guys have any information to share, please comment them down below. Anything that I'm missing or you think that's worth knowing, please comment it down below. So after I talk a little bit about aldehydes, I will share a few fragrances from my personal collection that feature aldehydes as a prominent note. What I've learned is that there are lots of fragrances that feature aldehydes, but it may not be prominent. So the fragrances here have very prominent aldehydic notes, and I think will be rightfully categorized as an aldehydic fragrance. Okay, so from what I understand, there are many different types of aldehydic raw materials. I know they're like C and some numbers, and like I said, I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to speak on that, but they tend to bring a characteristic to a fragrance, and different aldehydic raw materials would give different nuances. So in fragrances, you get aldehydes that come off as sharp. Sometimes they even come off a little bit chemically when you're like, okay, yeah, this must be an aldehydic fragrance. And sometimes they're soapy and clean. They can come off as very powdery, sometimes sparkly as well. And I've come to experience some aldehydics to have a coldness to it as well. Some can have little fruity nuances, some with florals, but of course, depending on how it's blended with the fragrance, it will, you know, come off one way or another. So the fragrances that I have to just, you know, feature. Oh, I also saw a really good video. Let me not forget to mention that. Tomalise, or Yana from Tomalise, her YouTube channel is Tomalise. She did a video maybe a couple months ago that I thought was great about modern and vintage aldehydic fragrances. And I will link it down below because I think it's a very interesting video and it was very entertaining to watch. And if you are interested in these kind of fragrances, she presents some really interesting options for aldehydes. I don't know if we share any of the same. We may, I can't remember, maybe, I don't know, we'll see. Speaking of vintage, aldehydes were used massively back in the day, in like the early 1900s. They were used a lot. I would say almost every single brand that made fragrances had a couple of fragrances that were aldehydic. One of the more famous ones was, of course, Chanel No. 5. And I do have Chanel No. 5 here. The first Chanel No. 5, created in the 20s, I believe, was in a pure parfum concentration. And it came in a presentation like this. My bottle is not from the 20s. I hope you guys cannot see my nails because they are messy. But my bottle is not from the 20s, unfortunately, but I was able to hunt down a bottle from the 50s and it still smells amazing. So this is the fragrance that made me change my mind about Chanel No. 5. A lot of us, our first encounter with Chanel No. 5 is the Eau de Parfum, which is a beautiful fragrance. But if you're not feeling the Eau de Parfum, try out the Pure Parfum. I feel like it has a bit more substance. It's deeper, it's richer, it has some animalic nuances that are just really sexy. But overall, it's just a powdery, floral, aldehydic fragrance, and the aldehydes in here, in the parfum specifically, to me come off a bit powdery, obviously, very clean, but because it has some amber notes and some, I think it's civet, it gives this like sexy warmth that you don't get in the eau de parfum. The eau de parfum was also created in the 80s, so it took some time before, I don't know why it took that long, but yeah, Ernest Beau was the perfumer of the parfum. Also the eau de cologne, which I also have because I am a vintage junkie now. I have an eau de cologne formulation. This is the like in a travel spray. It's so cute, and yeah, if you see here, it's number 5 eau de cologne. Yeah, to me, I feel like the eau de cologne and the parfum are more related, or they're more like sisters compared to the eau de parfum. I feel like the eau de parfum is like the black sheep of the family. These two give a similar vibe. This also has a slight animalic tinge that keeps it really interesting, but I find it more sweeter, almost candy-like, and I think it's just stunning. I love it. Now I'm a number 5 whore. But anyway, I want to focus more on the pure parfum since it was the original number 5. Yeah, this is not a review, so I'm not going to go into too much depth, but I think this is a brilliant fragrance, and I can't imagine, or I can imagine just like being, you know, living in the 1920s and all the established women were wearing Chanel number 5 parfum. So yeah, I also want to share, so all the number 5s have a prominent aldehydic note. There are flankers. The only other one that I have is Eau de Toilette, and this is the 50 ml. This is a modern formulation. This is not vintage. I believe they do have vintage Eau de Toilettes going around, but this is a modern one, and I really like this one. And I would say I prefer the Eau de Toilette over the Eau de Parfum because, again, it's a bit more fizzy, it's a bit more fresh, easier to wear. I find it to also be a really good office fragrance, but again, I think I'm going to do a video actually about office friendly fragrances in my collection, which should be interesting. Anyway, so let's go on to the next fragrance. While we're on the vintage side, I'll go ahead and mention another vintage, and this one is Christian Dior's Miss Dior, and it's the Eau de Toilette. I believe this bottle is from the 80s, but I'm not 100% sure. Aldehydes in here compared to the aldehydes in Chanel number 5 are more on the cleaner side. It's also paired with some herbal notes like clary sage, and it's quite loud and effervescent in the opening. I also have the Eau de Cologne, and that one is even more loud and effervescent in the opening. But today I want to talk about the EDT. Yeah, so it also has some floral notes incorporated with the aldehydes. But for me, the magic of this is in the dry down, which ends up being this like smoky, leathery, slightly animalic, sexy dry down. But again, we're talking about aldehydes here. So this is a very different take on aldehyde compared to Chanel number 5. This fragrance was also first introduced to the world in the 40s. So I think 1947 was when this one was created or launched or available for the market. I don't know. So yeah, that is Miss Dior Eau de Toilette. I wanted to make sure that I kind of included fragrances from different times, fragrances that feature aldehydes in different ways, right? So the next one I have to share comes from Tom Ford, and this one is a quite polarizing scent, but I personally do like it, and it holds lots of memories to me, so I can never get rid of it. This is Tom Ford's Metallique. Oops. Don't look at my nails. Oh my god. Tom Ford Metallique. This one here is a vanillic aldehyde. The aldehydes in here have a way of making it feel quite cold. The aldehydes here also give it a very prominent powdery feel to it, but I find that this is very pleasant. Although it's a cold feeling fragrance. It does feel cozy at times. It's vanilla, it's got some floral notes, and in the dry down and even a little bit throughout the wear, you get this really skin-like musk, and I think that's attributed to the ambrette. I find this one very unique, and it's more of a modern kind of futuristic take on an aldehyde. And I mean, look at the bottle. The bottle kind of says it all. It's very kind of I don't know how to explain it, but it's very new, very modern. I wouldn't say this is quite avant-garde or artistic, but it's definitely a very unique take on an aldehydic fragrance. So that is Tom Ford's Metallique. The next one is a fragrance that you guys have heard me rave about, and I honestly have to blame my recent love for aldehydes on this particular fragrance. And I got it as a challenge for me because I knew that it had an aldehydic fragrance, but the way it was used with all the other notes really intrigued me. So I was like, let me just try it. And it was a love at first sniff. I freaking love it. It's quite new to my collection, and I've already used it a lot. And this comes from the house of the January Scent Project, and it is Horla. John Beeble is the nose behind all the fragrances from January Scent Project. It is his brand. And this fragrance, oh Lord, the aldehydes in here to me the fragrance is very modern, but the aldehydic, the way he uses the aldehydes in here, to me, feels very vintage. So it's a modern fragrance, but I feel like it pays homage to some of the more vintage aldehydic fragrances. It has very interesting notes. There's vanilla, there's bay leaf, there is milk, some coffee, some civet. So to me, it's not very animalic, but on the skin, the way it develops, it just gives this nice warmth. And again, this aldehyde does feel a little bit cold at the beginning, but as it warms up on your skin and all the other warmer, deeper notes come through, it just becomes this beautiful, cozy, milky fragrance that has this lift and this airiness that I feel is so unique in this composition. And this is one fragrance that I recommend every single person to try, even if you aren't really into aldehydes, because I feel like this is what converted me. This is what converted me 100%. Anyway, let me keep it short. I don't want this video to be too long. This is Horla by the January Scent Project. Okay, and the last fragrance is one that I recently added to my collection. And also, again, I feel like this is a very unique take on an aldehyde. I don't know how I would date this, whether it be a vintage. I wouldn't say it's vintage, and I wouldn't say it's I wouldn't say it's vintage or traditional, and I wouldn't say it's super avant-garde, but I think it's just done beautifully. This is a white floral aldehydic fragrance, and this is Superstitious by Frederic Malle. Dominique Roquillon is the nose behind this fragrance, and this was a collaborative effort between Frederic Malle and Elbaz, who is a designer for, I can't remember her. But this one, to me, I find very interesting because the aldehydes here are front and center, okay? This is not trying to pretend to be an aldehydic fragrance. This is aldehydes galore in the opening, and the aldehydes remain prominent throughout the wear. And this scent is powerful. So this fragrance has jasmine and rose, but to me, I get mostly jasmine with a slight tinge of indole, not overly so, but very slight. To me, this leans more on the cleaner side, but it just has that sexy indole in the background. Oh gosh, it also is very soapy. So I know this fragrance can be polarizing because of how soapy it is. This scent, I can totally see it being a signature scent. Someone that smells like this every day. And once you start wearing this on your clothes, I mean, it's going to be an everyday thing because this thing sticks, okay? Sticks on your skin, it sticks on your clothes. It has other notes like incense, peach, and vetiver and amber, along with some patchouli, but mainly I get this loud, clean, soapy aldehyde with this slightly indolic jasmine. In the dry down, you get this patchouli, but it's not your dirty patchouli. It's like patchouli with all the dirt removed. It's more clean, but has this slight tinge of earthiness that just feels so natural on the skin. It feels like clean skin in a way. But this one is like my treasure right now. It's like my pride and joy in my collection at the moment. But yeah, this one is Superstitious by Frederic Malle. So that is it. Yeah, that is all. I hope when I edit this video, it ends up being quite condensed and a little more short. So yeah, comment down below and let me know what are some of your favorite aldehydic fragrance. I am always down to discover some new fragrances, so let me know and I will seek out samples to try, especially if they sound interesting to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye!